So yesterday we have started introducing ourselves. What is API? What is API testing all about? What are the different why API testing? What is the purpose of API testing? What is the difference between online and offline API? And what are the different types of API that we have? And we have understood what do you mean by API testing in layman terms. And we have also tried to understand what is the difference between web service and an API call, right? Any doubts so far about with respect to yesterday's topic before we jump into today's topic? No doubts, no issues. Okay, that's great. So today we will try to understand what are the different types of API mechanisms or whatever you say calls or architectures. So we all know the popular API mechanism or popular API call that is made is REST. 95% of the companies use REST as their preferred API service because it is lightweight and it supports both a JSON and XML formats. Though it supports both JSON and XML formats, majority of the time we go with a JSON payload only. REST follows the concept of a postcard. That means what? Like in the olden days, if you want to write a letter to someone, you just write some information on the postcard and you drop it in the postcard, and the postman will pick the postcard as it is and deliver it to the receiver. So in this process, it's a very lightweight process. Instead of carrying an envelope, ensuring that the envelope is sealed properly, we have to check all these things. Instead of looking into all these concepts, the rest follows the concept of postcard. That means what? From the Angular side, I'll be sending the payload to my API. API will, as it is, process in a most lightweight manner, and it will send the data to the DB or hit the server or hit the database as per the requirement. And REST is stateless. What do you mean by REST is stateless? The meaning of stateless means that it does not rely on any sessions or cookies from the client. REST does not use any sessions or cookies. Like the moment we log into the application, it might rely on the login session or login cookies. About we log into the application, it doesn't worry about anything. That is why REST is stateless. It doesn't rely on any other ecosystem. It is independent of itself. It doesn't worry about what is happening. It is lightweight, very easy to process. And if you want to if you want to understand how it is lightweight, understand the concept of postcard. We just write our information on a simple postcard and we drop it in the post box. Clear? So what do you mean by SOAP? SOAP is Simple Object Access Protocol. It is mainly used in the legacy applications and it majorly supports XML format. The thing with XML format is XML consumes more bandwidth. Like in reality, SOAP consumes more bandwidth. That means what? SOAP in terms of securities, it is more slightly higher, slightly sick. I mean, if you compare the in terms of security wise, SOAP is slightly more secure than REST, but the amount of space that it consumes to process the API is more because it follows the concept of envelope. What do you mean by it follows the concept of the envelope? That means what? Whenever we drop envelope in the post box, it is the responsibility of the API or the postman to see whether whether the envelope is sealed properly. We have to ensure that whatever content is present inside the envelope, it is not lost properly. It has to check all the protocols, all the mechanisms. And it is stateful because it relies on the session management and the cookies. What do you mean by session management? Suppose if you log into the application, what are the cookies? What are the session data that we are there? So the SOAP relies on the session management. And this is mainly used in legacy based applications. Like if the applications are developed in around 2000 or 2002 or 2004, and I still continue those same kind of application and not upgrading, only in those applications only we see SOAP being used majorly. Nowadays, everyone is using REST to develop their APIs because it follows the concept of JSON. I agree, XML is more human friendly than like if you see a XML sample XML template. Sample XML, right? This is somewhat that is very easy to perceive and understand. This XML file is something that is very easy to perceive and understand. It's a note to, from, heading, body. This is somewhat easy to understand from a human perspective. But from a application processing perspective, it is very difficult. It is very difficult to process because it consumes a lot of bandwidth to process the XML file. Because what did I tell you? If this XML file is processed in the SOAP, it has to ensure that the XML content is valid, it is secure enough, there is no loss of data, it checks for the integrity of the data, then it processes it. There's a lot of process happening. That is why it consumes a lot of bandwidth. Clear? I hope this is clear, everyone. What do you mean by more secure, consuming more data and consuming less set of data? Any doubts between REST and SOAP? Then there's something called as GraphQL, which was developed by Meta in 2012, and it is more advanced than REST. This GraphQL was made public in 2016, and it supports only JSON. If you see, how many of you use Swiggy, Zomato? How many of you use Swiggy, Zomato, Instagram? Instagram is a given. Nowadays, name any person who doesn't use Instagram, right? Everyone uses all these apps, right? What we are discussing. So the backend API of all these apps is GraphQL. It is not a REST library. Why? I'll tell you the reason behind it is, as I told you, it's more advanced than REST. I'll give you the difference of REST versus GraphQL. Give me a moment. So what is the REST? REST is more of a buffet where we need to reach to that endpoint. For suppose if you are in a buffet, you will have 30 items right in front of your eye. If you want to have that item, you have to go to that particular section and you have to have that item on your plate. Whereas GraphQL is more of a la carte system. That means what? Whatever items you order from the menu card, that will be ordered right in front of you. You understood the difference between what is REST and a la carte, REST and GraphQL in terms of restaurant model, not in technicalities, in terms of restaurant model. Any doubts, you can let me know, guys, everyone. Right. So that is why GraphQL is more advanced and it is very, very lightweight. Like when we discuss about GraphQL at a later point of time, you'll understand because if you want to access some endpoint, if you want to access some API technically also, you need to give the complete payload or complete URL. Whereas for a GraphQL, you need not mention everything. Whatever data you want to filter, I'm passing it right in front of you. And it processes and understands the data quickly. GraphQL understands the data quickly compared to REST Assure. Then you might ask me, GraphQL can be used everywhere, right? But when it comes to banks, when it comes to any insurance base, when it comes to healthcare, we still use REST Assure because its reliability, because GraphQL has come in 2016 and we have seen its usage popularly in one of the most e-commerce sites or something like that. Priyanka, if you want to process a huge set of data, now you see Instagram channel is there, Instagram reels are there. You see the moment you swipe up, you see a lot of data coming up. Within a fraction of a second, you're getting the data. So REST is not that quick to process the data. GraphQL is very, very quicker in processing the data because for REST, you need to give the complete endpoint, complete source to destination. You have to provide it yourself as a developer. Whereas for a GraphQL, what happens is you need not give the complete data. You just give the base URL and whatever data you want to filter, whatever activities you want to perform, just send it. I need not give the complete address. When we discuss GraphQL, I'll understand it more clearly, Priya. It's it's super fun to see how GraphQL works because it's super quick and super fast to process. And there is Ready API. A Ready API is nothing but upgraded version of SOAP UI with more advanced options, but ultimately it's a paid tool. So I will definitely overrule this because any paid tool is something 95% of the companies won't accept. Then the next thing is WebSockets. What do you mean by WebSockets? You have seen any chat-based applications. If you are using some service now, you will ask you to connect with chat, or if you have any issue in any website, use the chat box to communicate, right? So they use the concept of WebSockets, and it is stateful because it stores the session data and cookies. That means It will establish the connection only once, and it has to ensure the communication is constant. And based on the messages, it should understand and it should give the reply back immediately. So that is why it is stateful, because it needs to store the session data, all the session conversations on all the cookies that has been generated. Is this clear? What are the 5 different types of API mechanisms or API calls or architectures that we have? All good? Great. Great. If everyone is clear, yeah. Right. Ready API is not a testing tool. I mean, it's not a testing tool. It's mainly for API testing only. It's an advanced version of SOAP. Okay. And yeah, when you say it's a testing tool, it should also support everything. And this is upgraded version of SOAP UI. It doesn't follow REST protocols. It follows majorly SOAP protocols.
Okay, thanks.
Now, in order to perform manual API testing tools, what we generally use? The most popular tool is Postman because it's used by more than 20 million plus users. And the Swagger, it's a legacy API based application which is useful for documentation. But nowadays, we can also use Postman for some amazing documentation. And there is a new tool in the market that has come in the last year, October or November. This is API Doc, which is like a combination of Postman, Swagger Editor, Swagger UI, Stoplight, README, JMeter. It's a combination of all. This is a new tool in the market. It's there since last November onwards. I mean, that's a tool that is still under development, but this is something new that has the ability to compete with Postman because it has a lot of features, a lot of options and all. So before we discuss further, I want to help you understand that before we do any sort of API testing, please go through the API documentation provided by the client or developer. For any sort of API testing, you need to have a word with your developer or the client to understand what is the API all about, understand how the API is built, understand what kind of payloads, understand what kind of parameters needs to be given, understand the business of the API. Then only we have to do the testing. If because API testing is mainly done in coordination with the developer rather than a product owner. It's mainly done in coordination with the developer because they are the ones who has built the API. They are the ones who know how they establish the communication, how do we send the data and all. So before we discuss further, always remember this point. API testing is something that changes dynamically from business to business. So it's our responsibility to go through the complete API documentation provided by the developer or the client. Yeah. Okay. I hope this is clear. All good. So what are the different HTTP methods that we have? What do you mean by post? Post means it is like creating an account or creating a user or creating a new set of data. Good one. RESTful API and REST API doesn't matter much for us when we do some testing. RESTful API is mainly used for developers. Okay. Okay. Mainly RESTful and REST API are mainly used for developers. Not much of a difference from testing side. Got it, Aarti? So if you ask
Yes.
me, if you ask me to explain REST API and RESTful architecture, what happens is that this is mainly if you discuss now, we have to discuss it from a development standpoint of view. Like REST API follows the principles and constraints of REST architectural style. So if you discuss about REST architectural style, there are some 8 different components that classify under a REST architectural style. There are some 8 different principles that we need to follow to consider that API follows the REST architectural style. When you call a RESTful service, that means API fully complies with the REST principles. RESTful API. That means it is not like it will satisfy all the 8 compliances of the REST principles. When you say REST API, that means It just follows the principles and constraint. It does not apply every principle into this API. So that is why I told you it is not important from a testing perspective. It is important from a development perspective. Got it? There are total 8
Okay.
principles in REST API architectural development.
Okay. Is there any way, like in a web application, or we get to know
No,
is it
no, no. This
following
is fully from a
API?
development perspective. You cannot do it. If you want to understand, na, like that is again you have to sit with the development team. Okay, you have to sit with the development team and understand what kind of resources. Like strictly, I mean, if the API is strictly representing the resources, resources means in the API URL you see right, so and so A, so and so B, so and so C, A/B/C, like it's strictly representing the resources or not. Based on some resource management, like based on the servers that it is being mapped, we can try to say it's RESTful API REST. Okay.
Okay, for the rest assured is going to we can test the rest assured, restful and REST API both.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to us. See you.
Uh,
It is from a development perspective. See, as a tester, what I want is RESTful and REST services means it's like I'll tell you, there are 8 principles of building a REST API. If you follow some of the principles, that is REST API. If you follow all the 8 principles while developing the API, that is RESTful API.
okay.
Got the point? In the word restful, only there's a meaning. That means completely, I have acknowledged all your principles. I have built it API in such a way that I follow your principles. I follow your architecture. I follow the complete process, what is laid down by REST. It was designed, this principles was designed by Floyd Weather. Lloyd Weather or Floyd Weather. I forgot his name.
Okay, okay, got it. And sir, like if we have a local API in the project, like a local host, so that
Okay.
we consider it as a API,
Like
like because
that is a API. That is a API. But if you want to test on a local host, the entire code base or entire Docker image should be running in the background. Then only that local host will work.
yeah, yeah, okay,
So generally, if you want to test a local host, these days what developers do is they send that Docker image which runs on Kubernetes network, and they will you have to keep that Docker engine running in the background so that the local host will keep on running in the back, keep on running. You can keep on hitting the endpoints. But localhost API testing is something that is not widely used because you need to know how to run a Docker image, you need to know how to start your servers and all. Got it? Like currently, I'm working on some API development. That is why whatever development related questions you're asking, I'm able to answer it better.
okay, sir. Yeah, thanks.
Hmm. Okay. Now, what is put? It is complete modification of data. That means what? I have 10 fields. I'm modifying the data of all the 10 fields. Now, when I say get now, like when you click on the search button, how many of you seen the search button in any application? Like when you enter some data and when you click on the search button, in the backend, we hit the get endpoint. What does the get endpoint do? It will fetch the details from the data, fetch the details from the server or the database as per the requirement, as per the search criteria. So any search button that you see across the globe, they use the get endpoint. What do you mean by patch? The word patch says it's a partial modification of existing data. What do you mean by patch? It's like a stopgap parameter. I'm not replacing the complete data. Okay, there's some issue. In order to fix the issue, I'm just applying some patchwork. Got it? Yeah. Then there is delete. Delete is obviously I'll be removing that particular set of details or particular set of resources from the server or from the database. Right? Now, there is one more HTTP method that is called as head. That means what? Before I want to see whether the get API is able to fetch any data, I want to confirm whether any data is present or not. Got it? Like when you hit the get API response, if the data is not present, it might throw some error. Instead of facing that error, instead of tackling that error and trying to figure out what is the error, before hitting the get response, I want to check whether I'm in a position to read the data from the server or read the data from the database. That is what you mean by head. And there's options. What is this options? This is sort of a API documentation provided by the dev team which helps us understand what kind of API calls can be performed on the API server. Like you are new to the API testing in your project, and this options is something that most of the companies are these days ignoring it. But if you have the options, you will understand like when you hit your API server and if you select the HTTP method as option, I will demonstrate all this. Don't worry, this is just a theory. I'll demonstrate to you in a later point of time that for this API server, if I select the HTTP method as option, it will display the list of API calls, what it can be performed, along with the server related things like maximum threshold time, any other details about the server. It will display everything for you. These days, most of the developers are not maintaining it. That's another reason. But having a concept of options in your API testing is always mandatory. That keeps your things in check. Clear? Is this clear, everyone? What are the different HTTP methods that we have?
Rahul, I have a doubt. It's a basic one. See, when you say API call, what do you mean by that?
API call. So you use Amazon, right? You use Amazon, Sanjay.
Yes,
When you use Amazon, what you do? You enter the data and you click on the search button, right?
yes,
So will the application directly interact with the database?
no,
No, right? So the
no.
search, what does it do? Whatever request you're sending, it will be converted into the form of a JSON. And there is a middle layer called as the API layer. That API layer, whatever you get it from the UI, it will convert into the form of whatever data you get it from the UI. It will be understanding itself in the form of a JSON. And I'm triggering that API action. When I'm triggering that API call, the moment I hit on the search button, right?
Okay,
So it connects to the servers and database. Servers for fetching the images, fetching the products, list of products, and database to inquire what is the inventory of the stock. If the inventory is not present, then you don't fetch this data from the server. You got the point?
okay, okay.
So
Whatever request I'm sending to the whatever, whenever I go to a website, I'm making a request, and that
yes,
is made into JSON, and that is where that API call. That is what is API
that
call
is
when it
what it
hits the
triggers the
server.
API call. That is where the
Okay.
business layer is there, and it will understand whether you're passing a right search criteria or not. If you pass a wrong search criteria, immediately say like you're passing some wrong information, right?
Yeah, correct.
So that is a call directly from the API. You'll get it, not from the database.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Any doubts so far? All good?
Yeah, I am good.
How about others before we go ahead? Right? Aarti, Avinash, Bhagya.
We are good, Rahul.
Thanks.
Sir, I have one question about the Swagger.
Hmm.
Some people tell like why if we are using Postman, why you need the Swagger? Mm,
See, these days, there's a still olden day saying that documentation, for any kind of a documentation, Swagger is used. I'll tell you one thing, because if you go with any Swagger URL, like let me open any dummy Swagger URL if I remember. It stores.
with Swagger also we can do the testing there, right? We can just do
Not
whatever.
exactly the testing. I'll tell you. If you see the Swagger
Yeah, but
documentation, most of
we
you
can run it. Yeah.
you can run it. I'll tell you one
Yeah.
thing. Now, if you want to pass the data, you will pass the data, you will say try it and you will pass the data. So it is very useful for my API documentation. This kind of a API documentation I can also generate in Postman also. But since there is a olden saying that Swagger supports API documentation. And one more thing, the problem with Swagger is once I close this URL, your data will not be stored. It is stateless. Again, if you want to have a look at the data, what have performed on the day, you cannot save the data, you cannot do any such activities. That is why we say it's like a more of a documentation. When you say it's more of a documentation, you will execute this API call at that moment only. If you want to check for negative, you cannot clone it, you cannot maintain it in the package, you cannot do any storage. That is why I say it's more of a documentation sake. Can you do any testing? No, it's just hitting the API call. Yes, Sanjay, you're absolutely right. It's a design and documentation tool. And nowadays, Postman is also gaining a lot of popularity, and some of the end users are still using Postman for their documentation because they don't want to maintain two different tools. One tool is enough for me.
Okay. So when you mention legacy API application, you mean to say it's going to use for the legacy or just for the
Legacy
documentation?
means there are some API endpoints which are designed in some 2007, 2008, like the initial days of the rest assured. So they, in order to share some documentation to the team, those days Swagger was the only thing. And they still continue using Swagger because the business is running. Why do I need to upgrade it? Got the point?
Okay, sir. Yeah.
So you see here, it's just like giving me the payload. Okay, this is my endpoint. And what is the payload I have? And what kind of response you can generate. Got it?
Yes, sir.
And if you want to pass some bearer token, we pass some bearer token here. If you want to use some what2, you can use this what2. That is up to you. Okay. But again, it depends on the developers and their documentations. Why do I need to worry? These days, I'll tell you what happens in API testing in most of the companies. They'll be giving you the Postman collection to you, and they'll be like, okay, fine, I'm giving you the Postman collection. You only check all the API endpoints, you check the sample payloads and sample response. Got it?
Okay.
And I'm just telling you, when you shift companies, when you shift between companies, you will see these things happening. Okay. I hope I'm clear with the introduction of all the details. Status codes is something we can deal with it later. Okay. If everyone is good, can we go for the next one?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go for the next one. So let's understand how do we install the Postman tool because we are working with the Postman. So how do we download the Postman tool? Let me open this in incognito tab. Postman download. Okay. Download the Postman. So based on your operating system or based on the system that you're working, automatically it will give you the option. Right now I'm working in Windows system. It is showing me Windows 64-bit. When you're working it in a Mac version, it will say Mac Intel chip or Mac Apple chip or Linux 64. Based on the operating system that you're working, automatically it will give you the default option that download this Windows 64-bit app to work with the Postman API platform. So this Postman supports web and desktop version both. Got it? Postman supports the web version as well as the desktop version. So if it now it's saying if the Postman is not in your OS, download from Mac, Intel chip, Apple chip, Linux, or something like that. Got it? Automatically it will take your operating system here, guys. You need not worry about anything. Yeah. So let me download this Windows 64-bit. So let it download. No, 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 no. Do it after the session. Don't do it parallelly. You will get confused. So let me open this Postman tool. Okay. Okay. I by mistake I pressed it for multiple times. So right now this already I've logged into the Postman. That is why it's showing me like this. If you go to home now, this is how my UI looks. This is how my UI looks. So you need to log into the application first. If anyone can share the screen, I will show you the proper installation, guys. If anyone can share the screen, that would be great. Yeah. Anyone can share the screen? Can you raise your hand so that I'll understand that you are willing to share the screen.
I'll do it.
I actually
Yeah.
installed,
Yeah.
so I can't, I think.
Okay, Sanjay will share. Sanjay, are you sharing?
Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm just seeing. Yeah. Can you see my screen, Rahul?
Well, it's load. Yeah. I'll take the control of your system, Sanjay.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'll approve it. Hold on a second. Yeah.
Postman download Postman. So since she is using a Windows 64-bit, automatically it is coming as a Windows 64-bit. Okay, this is your office laptop or personal laptop?
It's an office laptop.
Oh, okay.
You can go ahead. No issues.
Can you click on continue to this website for me?
Yes, I will do that.
It's not going.
I'm not able to click on that, but I don't have any firewalls as such.
Do not block this site again. Can you select this checkbox?
No.
Okay. Maybe they have blocked it permanently. Okay. Anyone else? Always Sanjay, if you have a personal laptop, that would be great for practice.
Yeah, I will do that from next time.
Yeah. Good. Anyone else would like to share the system? Because I just want to show it from a scratch because I already have a Postman in my system. So it automatically logs in with my username. Anyone else, guys?
Yeah, it is starting actually.
Oh, it's starting downloading.
Yes, yes.
Oh, great.
1 second. I was able to see that. Yeah. See, it's
It
happening here.
didn't. Okay, okay. Great. Thanks, Sanjay. It's a good help.
I'll just go to downloads and then I'll give the.
Yes. Great.
Okay. You want to take the. Yeah. Sure.
So the installer will open up immediately. Okay. Now, when you open the Postman for the first time, it will ask you to sign in with your work mail ID or something like that. So if you have a Google, I mean, always everyone has a Google account. So you can click on continue with Google. Okay. So put your mail
Put
ID
it
now.
go with. Yeah, this one.
Yeah. So you can use your mail ID. You can log in using your Gmail ID.
Why is it asking password now? 1 second. Give me a second.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, click on continue. Yeah, click on open Postman. Yeah, just allow. It's okay. Oh, you also have your own thing. Okay, fine. So is this clear, everyone? How do we open the Postman for the first time? How do you log in using your Gmail account? So whenever you open Postman, the first thing, I mean, you have to log in with Gmail account. If you log in with your Gmail account only, all your API endpoint details will be saved in your uh, account. And we can also access some more features of the Postman. Like if you don't log into Postman and you're working on some API testing, it will not allow you to execute some curl commands also. Like what is curl and all, I'll explain you in detail later point of time. What is curl? How do you tackle a curl and all? So these are all something like, I guess these are some sample endpoints that okay, you're working on this APS.
Not really. Well, took a sample. It's a sample one. It will work, but
It is work related. Okay.
no, not
Okay,
at
okay.
all.
So this is how a default Postman screen looks like. Okay, this is how a default Postman screen looks like. And thanks, Sanjay.
Yeah.
I'll take it from here.
Sure.
Just I wanted to showcase the installation part.
No problem.
Now, if you see in the API network, this is one of the main things where you will understand what are the different endpoints that the public is working on. Like if you want to have some reporting API from Akamai services, Ping One API platform, and if you want to know what are the Chat GPT API collections, so you will see all these things that are being displayed here. So there are some public collections that you can see here, trending APIs. Not only you, there are a lot of people who are using Postman to integrate to do their API testing and to build their APIs. So if you see official WhatsApp API cloud documentation, like suppose if some developers wants to have integrate WhatsApp cloud API into there. So this is an official collection by Meta. They will update it on a regular basis. So this API network is something like a networking platform where you can get all the endpoints that the people are using it on a regular basis. Clear? Yeah. So you can see there's a new option called as MCPs, build AI tools. You can see how many number of publishers are there, how many number of workspaces are there, how many collections are there. So on a regular basis, you will have a lot of collections. Yeah. On a regular basis, you'll have a lot of collections, a lot of things that we can discuss on a regular basis. Clear? Any doubts, guys?
Yes, clear.
Right. So this is something about the API network tab. Okay. Then if you go to the home, you'll be having the list of workspaces and all. Then if you go to the workspace is like a Postman project. Like workspace is like a proper namespace. Like for suppose if you're working with some banking workspace, banking endpoints, this is my banking workspace. If you're working with some other endpoint, this is my some other workspace. So workspace is like a project where we create our API project. It can be related to testing or it can be related to development. So if you click on workspaces, it will display the list of workspaces that I already have with me. And if you want to create a separate workspace, evening 8 to 9 underscore May 2025. So if you want to create a new workspace, you can give your name and you can say like create workspace. So it will display the list of options, whether you want a blank workspace or you want to use some existing templates in your workspace to do your regular activity, right? API development, if you want to have some existing templates that we use, API testing, API security, incident response, cloud infrastructure management, partner collaboration. You want to explore any of our templates. As of now, I don't want to use any existing template. I want to go with a blank workspace. Okay. I want to go with a blank workspace. I don't want to go use any existing templates. So I click on next. So when I click on next, you need to give the name of your workspace. What is the name of the workspace you do? We say something API testing. So what I'll do, I'll say API testing learning, API testing learning. So if you want to make your you want to make this workspace public to everyone, you can make it public. If you say internal, build and test the APIs within your team. So Potraj, disable your annotations, please. So when I say partner means you will share your APIs, whatever APIs you're doing, you will share it with your trusted partners only. You'll not share it with anyone else. You will share it with your trusted people only. Okay. So as of now, I'll go for the internal and I click on create. So this is how we create a basic workspace. Yeah. Any doubts so far? All good. So Postman also gives you some wonderful way to connect to your Slack or to your Teams if required. Okay. You can also turn on your workspace notification, like whenever you're running some collections or whenever you're running some APIs, you have to send a message to your teams or something like that. You can send all those details if you require. There's again respect subjective to organizational policies. So this is how a basic workspace looks like. Now, once we create a workspace, now, when you say new, if you click on new, it will be displaying a lot of options. Like you want to create a new HTTP request or a new GraphQL or a new MCP or a new collection. Collection is like a package. Like in Java programming, how do we have a package? The same thing. Or a WebSocket, like how we have discussed, or any environment variable you want to create that, I'll discuss it. So mainly we'll be using HTTP, GraphQL, and collection for majority of the times. Rest of the things are something that we or may not be using it. So gRPC is one of the olden days of endpoint testing, and we generally SOAP, olden days of SOAP still uses the gRPC, and we can go ahead with it. RPC protocol is one of the olden protocols like SOAP and REST. Okay. So majorly we'll work on HTTP, GraphQL, and collection, like what you want to create. Now, when I say import, that means I have some list of API details where I have it in a JSON file, where I have it in a form of a curl, where I store it in somewhere else. You want to get your data. So how do I get this data? You can import anything anywhere. You can select some files or folders. You want to select your Postman collection from any GitHub bucket or something like that. Yeah. You want to migrate to some. You want to get the APIs from any other tool like SOAP UI or anything from Swagger or something like that. We can do all these activities in the import. So you can also provide your description about the workspace. Understanding of how we do the API testing for the given endpoints, and understand how do we validate the endpoints. So this should, any kind of a description you can put it here. That is not a problem here. Got it? If you want, you can make some any updates. You want to keep up people posted about your work, you can do it. Settings, workspace settings and all. So you generally all the things are available, but if you want to enable this APIs, mock servers, monitors, if you want to enable any of the options, you can enable it. That is your choice. Got it? Yeah. Any doubts so far? So this is a mini walkthrough of the Postman tool that we all need to know. Yeah. Any doubts so far, guys? For now? Can everyone confirm on the chat box? Great. So if you see on the left hand side, these are the different menu options that we need to know. Okay. Collections, environments, flows, mock servers, monitors, history, and all these things. If you want to configure any more changes on the workspace sidebar, you can configure it again. Okay. So let's start with a collection. Collection is like a package. How we have a package in the programming language, the same thing. Workspace can be compared to like creating a Postman project. Understood, guys? Whenever someone says a workspace and a collection in Postman, so understand workspace as a project in some Java programming language or somewhere, and understand the collection like a package inside a project. Okay. So I'll click on this plus symbol. So it will help you create a new collection. So it will also give you want to create a blank collection, or you want to create from some existing templates or something like that. But as of now, since we are learning for the first time, let's go with a blank collection. Okay. So you can give any name for your collections. So I'll say sample understanding of different HTTP calls. This can be a name of your collection. And if you see here, you see this recent changes tab. That means what? It will give you a tracker of what changes has been done. Like how we see the changes in the GitHub repository. Like you have made this change on so and so day or something like that. It also has an inbuilt tracker of what kind of changes have I made it here. Okay. Yeah. All good, everyone. Great. Is there any naming restriction on the collection? Ideally, there won't be any naming restriction, but always it's suggested to give a meaningful name to your collection. Okay. Now, let me pick a very simple endpoint. This is one of the popular sites that we use it for API testing. Okay. REQRES, it is suggesting if you want to have a free API key, you can have a free API key. Okay. Okay. So if you come down, so understand what it is trying to say. It's a faker data. It generates fake data. It generates fake data. It generates like a simulate. It works as a simulator in generating the API request and response. Okay. Got it, everyone. Now this is like a semi API documentation. Like this is like somewhat like a API documentation. What it is saying now, when I hit this endpoint, these are the list of details I get it. And this is the response I generate. When I hit this endpoint, this is a sample response I get it. When I hit this API URL, this is the response I get it. So this is somewhat like a mini documentation which helps us understand for what API URL, what kind of response are we getting. Got it? So what we need to do here, this is a get call. What do you mean by a get call? Get call is used for fetching the data from the resources, right? What is the purpose of a get call? We are here to fetch the data from the resources, right? So we will fetch the data from the resources. Once we fetch the data from the resources, then we want to validate that this response is coming here or not. Okay. I hope this is clear, everyone. Any doubts? Right. So how do we copy this URL? So right click, copy link address. Now if you go here, you see this option, add a new request to start working. So I click on add a request. Now you need to provide any name for this request. What is the name? I'll say list users. The name of the endpoint is the list users. Okay. So I'll paste the payload here. Once I paste the payload, automatically every data is coming automatically here. So you see here, Postman is detecting that you have made some new changes. So for this collection, now if you see the collection history also, it will see what kind of changes that you have made here. Got it? 5 changes made so far. Updated URL query parameters, rename the request to new request to list users. You will have a complete track of what kind of changes you have made here. You need not worry about what kind of changes I have done. So if you go and see here, you can see what kind of changes you have made here. Got it?
Rahul, when you say payload, it is the data that you are sending to the server, right?
There is no payload here.
No, I'm okay. But if you say payload, that is what it is, right? The data what you are sending to.
No, not the data.
Mm.
The data that we send only in the body, it's called as a payload. This is not a payload.
Okay.
I'll explain you payload, everything and all. Just
Sure.
give it some time. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I say HTTPS req.res.n, so this is called as a main base URL or a parent URL because this is like the main server. Inside this req.res.n is the main server that we use it. Clear? Now /API/users is your endpoint. Endpoint means what? How do I navigate across inside the req.res.in server? That means what? In the req.res.in side, I want to access the API server, and that API I want to access the users. So this is called as a base URL and endpoint. So in the later classes, you'll understand what is this URL, what is URN. So on a whole, we call this as a API URL. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. So req.res stands for the domain name. Yeah, req.res.in stands for domain name, and API user stands for the endpoint that we are using it. Clear? Great. I hope this is clear so far.
Yes.
So now, if I want to perform the API action, you need to click on the send button. When you click on the send button, you see the status code as 200. When I say status code is 200, the request is processed successfully and returning a response. Now, if you see in the response tab, it is generating the data in the form of a JSON. So for the people who don't know JSON, in the next class, that is tomorrow, we'll explain a bit about what is JSON and how it is all about. It's like a more enhanced version of a JavaScript object with a key value. So I'll explain you about JSON and all tomorrow. I'll spend some 10-15 minutes on JSON and I'll explain you what is it all about for the people who don't know. Okay, now you see the response that is generated in this format, and you will see all the details about the JSON payload. It's already okay. Okay, Madhavi, I'll have a look at it. Okay, I'll have a look at it and keep you posted.
So Rahul, what is the path then? Path is an endpoint API API.
API users is your endpoint. RES is the main base URL. That means it's like a parent server. This does not change. Now inside this req.res.in server, I'll be navigating to API folder, and in that users, I want to fetch the records whose page number is 2.
So then what is the path? What we consider here it's a path?
See, whole API URL is considered as a path. In this path, we say that this is the endpoint. Endpoint means what? What is which path you want to navigate to? See, you are currently in some USA, I suppose. You are currently in some Washington state. If you want to reach your friend's home, what you will do? You'll have to take the directions and go and reach your friend's home, right? Similarly, RESN is the main web server. Now, inside this web server, I want to access this API folder, and in that, I want to access the users folder. Got the point?
Okay.
It's like navigating across the different files or methods inside this req.res.in folder.
Okay, sir.
Like similarly, when you work with local host, if you sit with your developers, what they'll say localhost colon 8080 slash API slash users. That means what? REQ RES will be a server name in this case. Yes. Yeah. So tomorrow we will connect and we will discuss more about the Postman things, guys. Tomorrow we will connect and we'll discuss again more on the Postman things. So we are left with 2 more minutes, and if I start discussing, it will take another extra hour to cover this topic. So tomorrow we will discuss and understand the different calls. How do you make in Postman? Okay. With that, we will understand what are the different HTTP codes, what are the different HTTP methods, and how do we call it inside the Postman. Yeah. So till then, just have a look at this. Clear? Any doubts so far? Okay.
Rahul, I have
Yes.
a doubt on yesterday's class regarding the microservices and API. Can you please explain that if you don't mind?
I have not explained microservices.
No, just a high level you were telling, but I didn't follow that yesterday. I just
Okay,
got lost between.
microservices. See, API is more like this. So if you ask me to explain between microservices and API, microservices, I am not designed any microservices. So let me give me a moment. I'll explain you properly.
It's just a high level. That's what yesterday you were telling, but I got lost a few minutes, I think.
Okay,
So
it's
yeah.
like see, microservices is more like we break down into small services. Communicates via REST. Communicates via REST. Like it's like we build some small blocks and small components where
Okay.
inside that components we can have a bunch of APIs that are in process. That you see the e-commerce have you might have microservices like order service, payment service, user service, right? So those are
Okay.
all built under microservices. That means there are some small segmentation because building, I mean, calling individual endpoint at a time in a programming is very difficult. So calling a microservice is like calling that bunch of components in your system. Clear?
Okay. Then
So
what is
if
okay.
API is something that allows different software components to communicate with each other. Like you see, like when I hit on a search button, it will communicate with a different database or different server and fetch the data for you directly. You got the point?
Okay, kind of not very clearly.
Not very clearly. Why? Because you never see this difference when you see it from a see it from a realistic view. To the naked eye, everything looks same. So
Okay.
it's just like what is a container? Container is what? It's a packaging of all the things and you push it to the ship, right?
Yes.
What so in a ship, instead of a container, what you do if you put individual items, what will happen? It doesn't look well, right? Sometimes you might lose your item also if it's not well packaged or well managed. So small services, like it's a if you to be very clear, to be very precise, don't say this definition, but a cluster of APIs that form a small component is called microservice. So what do you mean
Okay.
by service? Like what do you mean by service when someone asks you outside? Service is like they'll give you a package of all the things, right? This is like a holiday service, or when you have a event at your home, what kind of services that the event management gives you? Food, catering, and all. Service is
Yeah,
like
it's
a
a
package.
package. Yeah, yeah.
It's a more of a architectural style. So API
Okay.
is more of a contract or a protocol.
So
So
is it like microservices is a collection of APIs kind of? No.
no. Like I cannot say collection of APIs also. It's all in the business architecture. Again, I cannot.
Okay, let me do my homework then. I'll also check.
No. It's not about
Mm.
the homework. It's just like now you see the event services team is there. How the event services team deal with it? They'll give you everything as a package. It doesn't mean like it collection of services, right?
Okay.
So under the user service manual or under the order service manual, what they will do, they'll give you the list of services that it offers so that you can call whatever service you from this microservice, whatever API you want, you can call it from whatever API you want to utilize, you can utilize from this package for your activity. And microservices are deployed independently because they're packaged inside a packaged as a component, right? So it can be deployed independently. Whereas when you want to deploy an API, it cannot be deployed alone. Along with the API, a lot of other components also needs to be deployed. That like the any changes in the server, any changes in the front end, all the components should be deployed perfectly for an API to run. Got it?
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the overall thing I can say. But for us, it doesn't matter when we do some testing and all, unless and until the opposite person says microservice only, you will understand it clearly. That is why I say, whenever you do any API testing or something like that, you have to always sit with the developers.
Okay. Got it.
So
Thanks, Rahul.
you understand one more thing here. You can have APIs without microservices, but you cannot have microservices without APIs. Got it?
Okay. Understood.
So okay, guys.
So we
I
So
hope-
will,
Rahul, we test the microservices with Postman.
Yes, we test the microservices as Postman only. But
Okay.
I don't have any ready-made microservices because the components won't be exposed that easily. Like how we get some public APIs, you will never get the open source microservices that easily. Again, if I want to teach, I have to build a microservice, which I'm very poor at it.
Okay, sir, got it.
so we will go in detail this microservice architecture and all.
No, I'm not going in detail. I never promised anywhere about microservices.
Okay.
I can give you a theoretical part, but if you want me to see it practically, this is not the right place because I don't have the right set of technology in my hand to demonstrate with microservices. And I never said about microservices because that is very difficult to get it in an open source.
Okay.
Great. If no one has no doubts, you can drop it.
Yeah. Thanks, Rahul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you.
Hi, Rahul. This is Vijay.
Yes, tell me, Vijay.
If I want to reach you personally, how can I reach you?
In the group description, if you go to the group that you have subscribed, there is my number.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. But after call,
Yeah, you just drop a message. I'll reply back. Okay. I'll call you back once. Okay.
sure, yeah. Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you. Okay, guys. See you around. Bye bye.
Yeah, thanks.